guys, it's Marina with Art With You Life, where I teach Christ-centered art journaling that gets you into God's Word every day. And welcome to our Friday art journaling time, where we get to do an art journal from start to finish. And this month, we are working, obviously, on Christmas-related art journaling. And we've been also reading through some different scriptures that have to do with the birth of Jesus Christ, the Nativity, and some of the descriptions of what the Lord Jesus would be like when he came into the earth, and things that were said over him. And so today I wanted to read to get us started, because obviously we want to get started on the right foot with the Word of God, which is the best place to start your day. We're gonna read a little bit of the Gospel of Luke, and we're going to read what the angel actually said to Mary about Jesus. He said quite a few things to Mary, but I'm just going to read what he said about the Christ child that was going to be born. The angel came to her, she was troubled, and then in verse 30, the angel said unto her, "Fear not, Mary, for thou hast found favor with God." And then here's what he says about Jesus. "And bring forth a son, and shalt call his name Jesus. He shall be great, and shall be called the Son of the Highest. And the Lord God shall give unto him the throne of his father David, and he shall reign over the house of Jacob forever. And of his kingdom there shall be no end." And then, of course, their conversation goes on. But that's what he said about Jesus, that his kingdom shall have no end. So, a lot of people talk about the state of the world right now, and how things aren't how they used to be, and how, it's not like the good old days. Well, when I talk to people who've been around for a while, they say there is no such thing as the good old days. They all have their problems. But the great thing is, if you put your trust in Jesus, his kingdom has no end, and his kingdom is wonderful. Obviously, we have a kingdom that is led by a good and perfect and righteous and just God who loves us very much. So to be a part of his kingdom, and a kingdom that doesn't end, is so refreshing in comparison to what we have in this world, which is where kingdoms rise and fall, and politics go haywire, and governments crumble and are built up again. We can trust that there is a kingdom that has no end, and Jesus Christ is the Lord of that kingdom. So that's the hope of the Christmas season. I hope you guys are remembering that, the reason for the season, while we're celebrating Jesus' birth. Alrighty, so I want to put a little reminder banner up here. We have art journaling every Friday at 10:30 a.m. Pacific time, 12:30 p.m. Central, and 1:30 Eastern, right here at Artworthy Life. But next week is Christmas Eve, so I will not be live on Christmas Eve. I will be with my family, and I hope you are too. Alrighty, I'm going to hide that real quick, and we're going to get started. So as you can see, I have some things traced out already, and this is from our art journaling club. If you don't know about the Artworthy Journal Club, send me a message if you're interested in knowing about it. But we do art journaling every month. We have at least 4 events every month. We have a prayer and fellowship, show and tell, visiting time. We have 2 art journal demos that are live with me face to face via Zoom. And then we also have a paint party every month. And then we oftentimes have bonus events as well, as including challenges throughout the week. And you also get Happy Mail. And one of the things that comes in your Happy Mail, if you're a member, is these monthly tracers. And they are based on whatever the theme is for the month, which of course this Christmas is the Nativity. And so we have a lot of fun nativity related images that you can use in your art journaling. And the key with this is it keeps you going when you're not in the mood to freehand, or you're not feeling very inspired. You can take one of these tracers, trace it out, and then you have a place to start in your art journaling. So today I picked this little portrait of Mary and Joseph holding Jesus together. And what I want to do is show you guys how you can take an image that's more detailed and make it your own. So this image is actually pretty detailed. If you look at it, it has even the eyes and the eyebrows and the eyelashes, some details on the hair and ears and fingers and all of that. When I traced it, though, I did not trace all those details. I just traced the basic outlines. And that's because I wanted to show you guys how to do some quick art journaling without spending a whole lot of time on the details. We've done a lot of detailed doodling. If you've been following for the last couple months, you've seen the fall art doodling that we did, and you saw the DIY advent calendar as well. And you'll notice those doodles tend to be very, very, very detailed. Sorry, I'm looking for a paper towel. Like I said, we just moved out of our house, and I have not gotten everything situated yet. And my watercolor cloth that I absolutely love is misplaced, and I have not got I just haven't even opened the box that the other ones are in. So anyway, paper towel today works just as well. Doesn't last as long, but works just as well. So what I wanted to do is actually, let me make sure I'm not missing comments. So if you're commenting and I'm not seeing it, I'm sorry. Sometimes the stream doesn't pull it through, but go ahead and say hi. Tell me where you're watching from, and I will say hi back. That'll be great. Okay, so what I wanted to do was show you how you can get some simple art journaling that's still really beautiful, that doesn't take a lot of prep work. So like I said, all I did was trace this one little circle right here. And what I did after that, or this one little scene of them kind of swaddling Jesus. And then I took my pencil and I drew a little oval around it. I'm just going to kind of polish that up a little bit to give it a little frame. And that will kind of make it look centered and clean. And then I'm going to take my biggest brush, which is my number 24 round, and I'm going to put a list of supplies right here. These are the supplies I use the most often: my Como Ruby watercolor set by Mozart and my Hobby Lobby Master's Touch set. But I also just picked up the, this is still Master's Touch, but it's by Fine Art Studio. So I also have these as well in a size 4 round and a size 20 aught, I think is how you say it. Okay, so we have all of those. But I'm going to do the background with this 24 round. And I'm going to start with a more of a teal color, and I'm going to start with azurite blue. I'm going to put it over, let me go ahead and show you where I'm mixing up my colors. So azurite blue is a blue that leans toward green, and then I'm going to add brilliant green to that. Let me grab a little of the blue that I already have on my palette. I love to use stuff that's already on the palette so that I'm not wasting. I'm adding a bunch of water to that. I've got a great blue theme going on in my journal this month. And I'm just going to kind of continue with that because I think it's really pretty. So this bluish teal, I'm going to take this. So clean my brush until there's no color coming off of it anymore. Or practically no color. It's okay if there's a little. And I'm going to wet my brush. And this is what I'm going to use to wet the journal page. And I'm just going to wet all the area around this oval that I just drew. And I'm not super worried about it going all the way up to the edge, because I like for it to be a little bit loose and not quite perfect. But I do want, so I'm not worried about it coming up to the edge of the journal, but I do want it to come all the way to the oval. So I'm going to make sure that it's following that oval all the way around with this big brush. You can just kind of fill all that in. Now, if the edges near the edge of the journal are not perfect, that's okay. So while that's wet, I'm going to take the color I just mixed up and just drop it in there. I'm going to start with the parts that are closest to the oval right here and just kind of let that color start to fade in. I'm going to take some of the blue that was already in my palette, and look at that spread out. Isn't that cool? So this is called wet in wet, or wet on wet. And the art journal being wet like that already allows the watercolors to spread out on their own without you having to do all of the work of blending and fading it out. But you can just kind of guide it. That's mainly your job. Your job isn't really to get it perfectly blended or anything. The watercolors are going to kind of do that for you, but you can guide it. So now I'm going to get a little bit of purple, and this is hyacinth violet. I'm just going to mix that into my blue, and I'm going to touch that into this painting a little bit. And I'm I want this to blend seamlessly with the other colors. Let me make sure this is in frame for you guys. So there's my little bits of blue, and you can tell that's blending into kind of a stormy blue as well. And I'm just going to keep that edge rough along the edge of the journal itself. Take a little bit more purple and put it down here. And I like for there to be a little bit of purple because it keeps the blue from looking too simple or flat or whatever. I'm going to kind of clean up the edge of this oval as I'm coming around, but even this oval doesn't have to be like a perfect curve. I just want to make sure it's even. And I can kind of use the tip of my big brush to do that. Ta-da! So see, that just kind of frames it in like that. Super simple border. And then, of course, I can come back in later once it's all dry, and that can be my area for my art journaling. So I'm going to clean this brush off. And I'm actually going to mix up some colors for Mary and Joseph. So the first color I want is their skin tone. And to make that, I'm going to go to my yellow ochre color right here, put a little bit there. And then I like to add white to make this lighter without thinning the paint itself. So we're going to add white to the yellow ochre, and that will give it that skin tone. And then I'm going to just touch a little bit of pink. Actually, just use the neon pink because it's brighter. And that'll give me just enough skin tone that I can paint that in really easily. I'm just kind of mixing the two with, I'm going back and forth between white and yellow ochre until I get the tone I'm looking for and a little bit more. Whoops, that's too much pink. There we go. I can kind of mix that in. And I want that warm skin tone, so I'm just kind of getting a little bit of water and mixing that together. So here's a good skin tone. If you have a paint palette that already has a good skin tone in it, you can use that. But that's what I'm going to use right now. And so this is the only part where I'm going to be really more particular about getting the shape right. And that's to do the hands and the face of each of these little characters. Or these people. They're not characters because they're real people. Each of these figures, we're going to do the hands. And I want to do all skin tones when I do a painting, unless I'm emphasizing. I like to do all the skin tones all at the same time because skin tone can be so finicky when you're mixing it up that if you wait and then mix up the next person's, it could be so drastically different that it just looks odd. So I like to do them all at the same time. And you can tell I used a brighter color this time, maybe brighter than is real, but that's because I wanted to use brighter colors on the clothing. So I didn't want their faces and stuff to be all washed out. So make sure we come down on the ear and the neck here. And I'm using my size 4 round because that's big enough to cover a lot of space all at once, so it doesn't take me so long, but small enough to get into the details. And this is just as simple as coloring in a coloring book. So just take your time and color this in. I like for the faces to have the right shape, so take a little bit more time with this, but you'll see the next couple steps will go a lot faster. We can just kind of fill that in like that. And if you were wanting to do a little bit more, you could add some shadow to emphasize the neckline. I can just grab a little bit of brown, mix it in with my skin tone a little bit, maybe come up underneath her neck here. And I'm just touching it. Normally I wouldn't want to do that while it's still wet because it could bleed into the face, but this is going to be so subtle that it's okay. I'll do a little under his chin and behind his ear to just make that part separate a little bit. You can do a little bit under the hairline as well. I might end up doing a little bit of hair there, but because his hair kind of comes down over that, but that'll at least give a little shadow. Then I can take a little tiny bit of that brown. This is just the number 52 brown. And even go along the side of Jesus's face here, maybe right next to the bottom of his arms, on the bottom side of Mary's hand, on the bottom side of Joseph's hand. Just a little bit, and I'm only adding this while it's wet. Once it dries, I'm not going to touch it because I don't want to brush strokes. You can come along his face here a little bit, along her face as well. Tiny bits of shading. All right, so not very much, just a little. And once that's done, let me see, am I missing comments? Let me make sure I'm not missing anything. Sometimes I can't see your comments unless I go to the other page. Let's see if I can see that. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is mix up colors for their clothing. So we're going to start with Joseph's. He's going to have like a cloak and a little head covering. And so for those, I'm just going to use a brighter color than I normally. I'm just going to use a red. Oh, I might want to use my smaller brush to mix this. I'm not sure. Okay, so I'm going to start with crimson. And I'm going to add a little bit of orange to that, just to make it kind of an interesting bright color. So that's what I'm going to use for Joseph. I'm kind of looking at that. I'm not sure if I like that against the purples and blues. Maybe I'll make his more of a purple. So I'm going to, instead, I'm just going to turn this into more of a purple color. I'm going to add violet to this red. And so he'll burgundy because the other colors are so cool. So you go with your closest thing to burgundy. We'll have that mixed up. And these are going to be blended together. That's why I'm not super concerned about it being perfect right now, because we're going to add a bunch of colors to it. And then we want Mary's blue. So we're going to use that teal again. We've got azurite blue. And I'm just going to mix that with a bunch of green. The peak green is really nice for that. It's brighter. So we can mix hers up like that, and then we can water that down when we actually start to use it. So there's a great teal for her. And then since we have like a burgundy and a teal, we can use a royal looking purple for Jesus. Let's see. We can use violet in the center. We'll use that for Jesus, and we'll maybe do a few other colors in his palette as well. Okay. And then we'll do their hair last because that's going to be the darkest color. All right, let's see if I'm missing any comments that I tried to see. It will load for me. Okay. Can I see any of you guys? I'm not able to see it right now. Okay, well, hopefully I'm not missing you guys' comments. Let's look at the page. Okay. All right. I don't think I missed any comments. Good. Alrighty. So I'm going to grab this brush. This is number 16 round. And I'm going to add some water to the page to start with for Joseph. So we're just going to wet the cloak that Joseph is wearing, his sleeve right here. And we're just going to wet it for now. And then I'm going to just bring that, even though this is a separate piece right here, his head covering, I'm just going to connect it and do a curved line all the way down because I don't want to have to do separate blending and stuff for that. So that's just going to be that. And then I'm going to skip this little headband he's wearing and do, or head wrap thingy, and do the top of his head thingy. I'm not sure what to call that. And now I'm going to grab the red. Okay, so we're going to come down on his cloak here with the red, or burgundy, whatever color you'd like to call it. And I'm just starting off with that. And of course, I'm going to add other colors as we go in. You can tell the color's spreading out because of the water that's already on the page. And now I'm going to grab a little bit of the purple that's going to end up being used for Jesus's color. I'm just going to add a little bit of that in. I'm going to come all the way up to the head covering right there. Do a little line there so we can see that separate. Okay, and then add purple all the way down to the end. I'll leave a little bit of space here and there. I'm going to leave a little white space on the head as well. Okay, now I'm going to go straight to my palette and get some highly pigmented purple and blue. So I'm going to use the number 34 violet and touch a little bit of my ultramarine blue. And just with that super strong purple, I'm going to drop a little bit into this painting. Okay, I'll just clean my brush off with that. And now with a clean brush, I'm just going to kind of push that color around because I want those deeper shadows. Just going to kind of blend that. You won't really get those deep colors unless you just go for it and drop a bunch of color into it. Good morning, Teresa. So good to see you from Washington. Yay. All right. So this is going to dry with some interesting, they call them cauliflowering or whatever on this painting because there's so much water here. And that's something you can avoid by using less water, but if it's part of the effect that you're going for, which it is in this case, it makes these cool little flowery edges, so, or cauliflowery edges. And that's what that's going to end up looking like. So there's more of his cloak kind of up under his chin here, but I don't want to paint that until this arm is dry, because if I do, it'll just blend right into it, and I don't want it to do that. So I'm going to wait on that. And that means I can start working on another section of the painting. So down here, it's a little worrisome because Mary's cloak kind of touches his arm, but I'm going to be real careful and hopefully not touch his arm. So I'm going to wet Mary's cloak going up around the outside of his arm. Just be careful not to touch the hand, and I'm just going to leave a little white space. So if you do that, and you can use a smaller brush for this, I'm just using the very tip of my big brush because watercolor follows wherever the path of the water is. So if there's no water there, it's not going to follow it when you go to add color. So I'm just using clean water. It's a little bit not clean because you can see a little color, but it's fine. But use clean water, wet the whole thing. And then I'm even going to go down onto this little band that's on the front of the head covering veil thing. And then we're just going to drop some color in. So here it goes. Look at it run. I love to see it run like that. Wow, isn't that neat? This past weekend, or I should say on Monday, actually, we did some fun acrylic pouring. I think some of you guys saw that on my story. Tell me if you saw that on my story when I posted it. And the fun thing about that is it is another medium that you really can't control where it's going. You can to an extent, but you don't know what the end result is going to look like. And it really just depends on how the colors line up and where the paint decides to flow. So if it doesn't, if you want it to look a certain way and you get really stuck on it, you just can't, because it's going to do what it wants to do. So that's very similar to this wet and wet technique, is you just have to kind of start adding the color, and you do it strategically so that you know about where it's going to be, but then in the end you really just have to let it go, because it's going to do its own thing. So you can tell I'm just adding teal here and there. I'm trying not to touch too much of Joseph, But I did touch him here a little and it ran into his arm, but that's okay. I think that looks okay. And now I don't want hers to be a solid color either. I want to add a little bit of other color. So I'm going to grab straight blue right out of the palette so it's nice and strong. This is, what's this one called? Ultramarine. And I'm just going to touch that ultramarine. I have a little bit of purple on my brush as well. I'm going to use that for some darker shadow near her face. Maybe bring it up along the bottom of here as well, and maybe just put a little bit throughout. You can use it to smooth out the edges as well, like that. Okay, and then I can use a clean brush, so in other words, without pigment on it, and just spread that color around, kind of blend it in. Help it get a little bit more even. And kind of pull it onto that little band that she has holding the veil. And down the front of her face like that. Look how pretty that is. Ooh, I love that color. So this is, you know, taking a little time as we're putting these extra colors in, but day projects, this is going way faster. So think about how quickly you could do something like this if you're doing your daily art journaling. All right, and now we're going to do Jesus's clothing, and we're going to start with a clean wet brush, and we're just going to wet down his little swaddling clothes that he has. They're in a weird shape, in my opinion, but I'm just going to follow what they have here. They're kind of up and over like that, but I think it'll still be cute. And I'm going to actually just carry this down onto his chest as well, so it's all going to be the same color. His little body that's right there. I touched Joseph's arm a little bit, so some of that red is running into here, but I'm already kind of doing that on purpose with the other colors we have, so it's okay if they kind of run together a little bit. And now I'm going to get that purple. It's a little more watered down than I want it to be, so I'm getting a little bit more pigment, and I'm just going to drop that in. So you can see that purple just spreads out. And I don't want this to be too dark, but I want it to show up as purple. So I'm just going to kind of keep it like a baby, soft baby color, but I still want it to be purple. And then on him, for sure, I want to have other colors dropped in. So I'm going to kind of pick up some of the water so it's not so watery. I'm going to take my smallest brush. This is my liner brush, my 20-aught liner brush. And I'm going to grab a little bit of red and do that on his chest right here. And then I'll grab a little bit of blue. Maybe do that over here. Oops, that's more violet. I want blue, blue. This is going to be the ultramarine again. Same one we used on Mary to darken up her teal. And look how her teal is drying, you guys. Isn't that beautiful? So I'll just add that blue around him a little bit. Like that. I think I might even add a little teal to him. There we go. I'm going to put a little shadow behind her hand so that it looks brighter right there. There we go. And I like that. All right, so lastly, we want to fill in their clothing, and then we'll finish with their hair, which is going to be darker. So their clothing, I can now do these like smaller areas because the rest of their body is starting to dry. So these areas are going to be a little darker because they're more shadowed, just closer in to their little huddle. So I'm going to do teal right here for Mary. And the one thing I'm real careful of on this part is not to lose the shape of their hands. Obviously we did their hands in pencil earlier, or tracing it earlier. So I don't want to lose their hands when I especially the neckline. That's really important to keeping that looking elegant. But even this doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, obviously. I'm just using my smallest brush for this. You can use a liner brush, whatever you have. And you can see how that deep color just brings your eye right into the center of the painting. I'm going to add a little purple because she has some purple in the rest of her clothing. And then I'm going to use that same blue for her sleeve over here. This might run into the color I used for the baby Jesus as well, but that's okay. Add a little bit more blue to make it darker. And then I'm going to use this dark color for Joseph as well. Even though his cloak was red, I think it'll make it look seamless between him and Mary. Like that. I think that they have like one cohesive color going on there. Add a little bit of purple to that as well. Maybe a little bit of the straight purple, straight from the palette. That's that violet again. And then anytime I'm near an edge like this, I can use that to smooth out these swaddling clothes, for instance. Okay, that's kind of pretty. And then I want to use that same palette, but in a lighter color to do his little head wrap here. And I'm just going to use some swirling motions and do the shape of it. I'm going to leave a lot of white space because I kind of want it to look like woven almost, you know, like a braided thing, something like that. Oh, do I still have my banner on here? I do. Let me get rid of that. Okay, here's my thing. And then I'm going to, so what I did is I started with blue and I added a little purple, and now I'm going to end on the burgundy that we originally used to finish that whole head wrap out. I think that'll look nice. And then lastly, we're going to do their hair. I'm going to do Joseph's last because I just did his head wrap, and if I do his hair now, it'll bleed right into it. He's bleeding a little bit into this one right here, so I'm going to smooth that out. But now we're just going to use a cool brown color. I'm going to start with number 52 brown. I think that's a pretty warm color, actually. So I'm going to add a little bit of black to that. This might not end up being the darkest color, but it'll be one of the darker colors. So I'm adding black to my number 52 brown. Here's the color that I'm coming up with right here. And do the hair. And I'm going to leave little bits of white space as I paint this in, just to show like light kind of hitting and to help it look like strands of hair kind of flowing. But there's not very much hair showing on Mary, so that's about it on this one. These ones can be curly. Brush strokes, kind of circles going around. And I'm going to kind of let a few hairs stick up and out and around so that doesn't look so stiff. And then I'm going to do the same thing for his beard, do some curly kind of hairs. But I want to, around his mouth, I'm going to keep it kind of tame there. Okay, and then all the way around. I always say, guys, hair is not my forte because I didn't draw it as much when I was little. I gotta kind of practice it now. You know, girls tend to draw girls. Okay, but I like to do the curly hair. I think it's really fun. My dad has curly hair, so I always love to draw guys with curly hair. Okay, so then we'll do, which probably nationality-wise, Joseph would have had curly hair. And then if you look at the tracer, or whatever you're using as your reference, he has hair coming up over his ear and down the neck a little bit. So I'm going to do that same thing just try to imitate that. And I think this will probably finish it out if I just kind of swirl it around there a little bit. Speaking of my dad, you guys might be able to hear him singing Jingle Bells. He's outside the trailer. We're in our travel trailer now, and he is singing. I love to hear my dad sing. So great. Okay. We are going to take Christmas pictures today, so he is in a Christmassy mood. And so am I, which is why I am just about to finish up. So look at this. This is our Christmas art journaling page for today, and that's all, just about all I'm going to do to it. I might put a little bit of a lettering right here, and then do my journaling around that. But all you'll need to use for that is either a liner brush or a art pen. And one of my favorite art pens are these Fudenosuke, which I never know if I'm saying that right. But anyway, they call them FUD pens for short, which is good for me because I don't know how to say it. Anyway, they are by Tombow, and they have a soft tip and a hard tip. And so why don't I just go ahead and do a phrase for us right now. Where did I put my Bible? There it is. Okay, so I want to do a phrase from our scripture reading today. I like to try to incorporate that if I can. If I can. If I can. Let's see. Oh, okay, I got the comments. Okay, and so today's one was from Luke. And let's see if we have a phrase here I can add while we live, so you guys can see that. How about, how about thou shalt call his name Jesus? I'll be kind of combining two phrases because it says thou shalt conceive in thy womb and bring forth a son and shalt call his name Jesus. So I think I'll do thou shalt call his name Jesus. So first, the first thing I want to do, I think I will use this one. So I'm going to do the word Jesus down here. And when we did our lettering this month, we learned a lot of different J's. And so I think I'm just going to stick with my normal one. J. Oh, and I forgot my disclaimer. This is the part of the show where Marina stops talking, because if Marina talks while she writes, she misspells words on live. Hopefully I can't misspell Jesus, but you know, still. Anyway, talk amongst yourselves. All righty, J. And if I were doing this, why am I still talking? If I were doing this for a big piece of art, I would have penciled this out ahead of time. But whew, I made it. Okay. So we'll say thou shalt call his name. And so thou shalt call his name. So I'm just going to do it along here. Thou. And I'm using block lettering. I like block lettering for smaller words. Thou shalt call. Hopefully this looks even when I get done. His name. Did you guys see I got my lettering a little bit bigger toward the end to make sure it swooped around? And I'm going to do a dot, dot, dot to kind of carry it through. And Jesus, thou shalt call his name Jesus. And then I can date this and do my art journaling, but that's all I have for today. So thank you guys for watching. If you do any art journaling inspired by our lives every Friday, please go ahead and take a picture and post it and tag Artworthy Life. I love to see your artwork, and it's encouraging to me when I know that it's inspiring you to be in the Word of God every day, and hopefully every week, every year, every month, all of those things. Alrighty, Merry Christmas, you guys. I will not see you next week. So Merry Christmas. Have a blessed week of celebrating the birth of Jesus Christ. And I hope that you remember the reason for the season. Spend lots of time with your family and loved ones this year. Alrighty, God bless you guys, and I will see you after Christmas. Bye.